I consent.
You consent. Good.
I consent.
Hello, everyone. So I think I've got the recording started properly. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to Kalamazoo Venture Tuesday. Everyone, please do me a favor and mute your mic when you're not speaking, but do feel free to leave your camera on. We love to see smiling faces. For those of you who have not ever joined us before, Kalamazoo Venture Tuesday is an opportunity to see inside the mind of investors as they provide feedback to our company presenters. The purpose of KVT is not to secure an immediate investment, but rather it's a teaching opportunity for participating companies and members of the audience. Each presenter will be given 10 minutes to make their pitch, followed by 10 minutes of feedback from our investor panel. We will not be taking questions from the audience. However, you may ask questions or make comments in the chat, which is located in the little conversation bubble at the top of your screen. So the first thing we're going to do is get started with our panelists and go through and have a little introduction from everybody. And Josh, we're going to start with you. We have Josh Tooker from Union Heritage. So go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself.
Okay, hi. Very nice to see everyone and see some friendly faces. My name is Josh Tooker. I work with Union Heritage, where I lead deal sourcing and due diligence and assist in portfolio management. Union Heritage is Michigan's first majority African-American owned venture capital firm. However, we've invested been investing in the public markets for the last 35 years and managing resources on behalf of public pension funds. And so we're really excited to be investing in the earliest stage here in Michigan. I love working with founders and appreciate this opportunity to be with everyone today. So thank you for having me, Sandra, and looking forward to the event.
Wonderful. Thank you, Josh. Great to have you. He's a first timer. So we love to have first timers, love to have newbies. Now I've got two seasoned panelists who've been with us before. Andy, I'm going to go to you. We have Andrew McColm from Closed Loop Ventures Group. Unmute and say hi. Andrew's working on it. Okay, you muted, and now we can't unmute you.
Okay, so sorry, I technical issues. I've got so many windows open. Yeah. Anyway, hi, Andy McColm. I'm with Closed Loop Partners. We're a venture fund out of New York City. I'm actually based in Ann Arbor. Sorry for the shirt, but hey, it was top of the pile. So we are a very, well, just as way of background, I've been in the sort of Michigan ecosystem for, Sandra, how long? Long time.
Wow.
20 years that I've been doing it.
Yeah. And I've run university startup incubators. I've done this, my third venture fund, and I've done about 8 startups. So I've been on every side of the table. Frankly, I like doing startups the best, but anyway. So Closed Loop Partners is a very narrowly focused, somewhat boutique kind of venture fund. We only do circular economy. Now, my previous funds, I've done everything from soup to nuts. But the thing I like about this group is we're extremely focused on, what the investment thesis is. And so and we're really kind of the only ones that specialize in this actual area. Anybody wants to know what circular economy is, happy to take long conversations offline.
Thank you, Andy. And another longtime friend of mine, David Bloom. He's here representing Pointe Angels. So David, unmute and say hi.
Unmute. Oh, I am unmuted. Hi. Hi, David Bloom, engineer, serial entrepreneur, retired professor, and angel investor out of Grosse Pointe, Michigan. That's in the eastern suburbs of Detroit. And I'm with a 5-year-old angel investor club called Pointe Angels. We've made 24 investments in 5 years, and we've made 11 this year. So we're really on a tear. Probably the only investor with a thesis that overlaps with our presenters today. No diss to my buddies Josh and Andy. My purpose on this is angel added value. My goal today is tell you what I heard, tell you what it is in investor language, and help you not pitch. Help you present opportunities to folks that you want to include on your journey.
Excellent. Thank you, David. We always enjoy your perspective. I think we've got a great panel today who's going to give some wonderful feedback to our three presenters. I will let each presenter introduce themselves as part of their presentation. So we are just going to jump right into things. And first up, we have Mark Liu from Civilized Cycles. So Mark, why don't you go ahead and unmute? And
hi, everyone. Good morning. Hey, Josh.
Hi.
Good to see you
And
again.
go ahead and bring up your slides into presentation mode. And I'll get my timer started when it's ready.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
We can go ahead and put it in presentation mode.
All right. Is it
There.
full screen now?
Perfect. Yep, it is perfect. I've got 10 minutes on the clock. Whenever you are ready, you can begin.
Okay, let's get started. So my name is Mark Liu. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Civilized Cycles. We're a light electric vehicle manufacturer based in Detroit, Michigan. And today I'm going to talk to you about how our technology is going to help Michigan and the rest of America move cargo more safely, economically, efficiently, and sustainably. So every day across the country, there are thousands of fleet operators who move very large amounts of cargo, relatively short distances, about 5 miles or less. These fleet operators could be universities or corporate campuses or municipal fleets, and they could be moving things as varied as trash or mail or lawn waste. But regardless of who they are or what they're moving, they all have roughly the same core challenge, which is to move as much cargo as possible while keeping operating costs low. And at the same time, safety and emissions are key concerns because a lot of this cargo is moved in pedestrian-heavy areas. Now, today, the vast majority of this short-haul freight is done by millions of commercial vans and trucks, like the ones you see here, Ford Transit van, the F-150. And the good things about these automobiles is that they can move very large amounts of cargo. However, they do have some very serious drawbacks, starting with how expensive they are. When you factor in vehicle payments and maintenance and insurance and parking and fuel and all these other expenses, the cost of these automobiles is extremely high, and it seems to grow every year. So to give you an example, the average total cost of ownership of a Ford Transit van over the course of a 48-month lease, which is the average lease period, is north of $80,000. So you can see how these costs tend to rack up. On top of the cost, there's the environmental factor. Most of these automobiles are not electric and produce up to 10 metric tons of CO2 every year. And then finally, there's the safety aspect. As I mentioned, a lot of this cargo is being moved in pedestrian-heavy areas, and these very heavy vehicles are incredibly unsafe in areas with heavy foot traffic and contribute disproportionately to pedestrian accidents and deaths, not to mention bicycle accidents. So because of all these different reasons, fleet operators are starting to explore other lightweight, more economic options like e-bikes. And these e-bikes certainly have some very specific advantages. On top of being cheaper, they can also use bike infrastructure and park much closer to the end destination, and so increase operational efficiency. But the reality is that the current crop of cargo electric bikes simply can't transport enough cargo to economically replace one of these automobiles. They can barely transport a third or occasionally half of what a van or a truck can carry. So that's why we created the semi-trike. It's a light electric vehicle that has van-sized capacity, but for a quarter or less of the cost and at zero emissions. And we are able to do this because we have patented self-leveling air suspension technology. It's the same core technology that you would find in a semi-truck, and that's what made the semi-truck the most successful long-haul vehicle of all time. For the semi-trike, what it results in is a vehicle that can carry very safely 200 cubic feet or over 1,000 pounds worth of cargo, which is 2.5 times larger than the next closest competitor, all while producing zero emissions. And because it's lightweight, it has a minimal production footprint. And I'm also very proud to say that every one of these semi-trikes is built in Detroit at New Lab in Michigan Central. So the semi-trike is now available for purchase. We've been thrilled with the response from the market. The demand has outstripped our ability to supply it. So we've lined up some major customers, some of which I've listed here, who are interested in taking semi-trikes for testing with the potential for up to $3 million in purchase orders. And some of them, including the University of Minnesota, have actually placed those purchase orders, so we're producing those bikes right now. Others like DutchX and Net Zero Logistics, which are the largest cycle logistics companies in the US, are in active trials. Locally in Michigan, we've launched a pilot program with Lime. And if you're in Detroit, you might see the customized vehicle that we built for them. I'll show you a video of that in a second. And we've got other pilot programs around the country about to launch, including a pilot program with Mogo Detroit that we're going to launch early spring of next year. In addition to the sales pipeline that we've built, we've also been able to obtain purchase order financing from Michigan Rise, which is a huge deal for us because it allows us to pursue our sales and marketing plans with confidence, knowing that we can fulfill on them. Let me just show you this quick video of the semi-trike that we built for Lime. I don't know if you can hear the music, but it's not that great. But essentially what we built for them is a customized rack that can carry 7 scooters and up to 40 batteries. Lime is using it for scooter rebalancing, for maintenance, for battery swap, and they are particularly interested in it because it allows them to park much closer to where people dump the scooters, oftentimes really far away from where a van can park. And so that increases their operational efficiency. And on top of that, they've also committed to fully electrifying their fleet by 2030. So they're very much at the forefront of sustainable transportation. So our initial customers are leaders in sustainable, cargo. I've already mentioned some of them. And this beachhead market is going to open the door for us to the vast campus fleet market in the US. And when I say campus, I mean that broadly. So universities, corporate campuses, also semi-enclosed campuses like hospital systems. And we estimate that this market in the US alone is worth $30 billion. If we are successful in the domestic market, that'll open the doors to the global micromobility and campus fleet market in more developed markets like Western Europe, but also developing countries in Latin America and Asia and other areas. And throughout this growth, we're very much looking forward to expanding our Michigan presence because for the foreseeable future, we fully intend to keep our manufacturing operations in Michigan, largely thanks to the fantastic manufacturing resources that we have there. One of our plans is to continue our product development and sales pipeline growth by running a statewide pilot program across Michigan, partnering with various different organizations ranging from, again, universities, municipal agencies, corporate campuses, with the idea of creating some additional customized semi-trikes for different use cases. So we already actually have a wait list of partners who want to participate in this pilot program, including Wayne County Senior Services and Midtown Composting. And so we'll be looking to build everything from refrigerated semi-trikes to deliver foods to senior citizens through to miniature dump trucks that will be used for scrap pickup and then taken to a central composting facility. So the overall structure of this pilot program will be, we'll run it for 3 to 4 months. We'll collect valuable performance and user experience data. At the end of the pilot program, the customers will have the option to purchase the semi-trikes, and we'll be able to continue refining our product development based on the insights that we gain. I won't dive too deep into the management team because we have bios. I'm sure you guys can read them. We're all serial entrepreneurs coming from various different backgrounds, ranging from mobility to product design. The part that I'm most excited about is we've been able to attract some really heavy hitters from the world of micromobility, including Sven Etzelsberger, who was one of the founders of Irby, probably the most successful kind of B2B psychologistics company in the US, as well as Justine Lee, who was part of the team who scaled up City Bike and ultimately led it to its acquisition by Lyft. We've put together a growth plan that we believe is quite ambitious but achievable. And it's all based around this one central idea, which is, our business model is very simple. We build semi-trikes and we sell them to fleet operators. And our goal is to sell over 3,000 units in 2028. And we have a very aggressive sales and marketing plan to support that. Our growth plan is it's not very capital intensive because we're able to take advantage of the really fantastic contract manufacturing ecosystem that exists in Michigan. Lastly, I want to talk about impact, and I'm really happy to talk about this here because it's not always something that we get to expand on a lot in most pitches. And so we're very much driven by impact, and I've already talked about some of the areas that we look to make an impact on, including safety and emissions. Ultimately, our goal is to create impact by providing an affordable solution, and so really having the economics drive adoption, and therefore adoption leading to impact. Um, on the affordability side, I've already mentioned that our vehicle, from a total cost of ownership perspective, is much less expensive than automobiles or even other e-bikes or utility vehicles that are out there. And this is great for large fleet operators. But really, what ultimately we'd love to make this solution available to individuals as well, solopreneurs, small to medium businesses, people who have been until today potentially locked out of the economy because they can't afford a $50,000 truck or $3,000 a month kind of car payment when you factor in all of the expenses. And we hope that this will unlock entire areas of economic activity for contractors, for individual operators. And that's something that we know it's going to take a long time to get there, but we believe that we have at least one piece of the puzzle and a great solution that can help us get to that kind of future. So where we always have this in mind as we're moving forward, making things safe, efficient, affordable, and using that to drive impact. Thank you.
Wonderful job. Thank you, Mark. Really interesting what you've got going on there. So panel, we're going to give you a chance to weigh in. And I think today I'm going to start with David. So if you want to provide some feedback to Mark, we'd appreciate that.
This is a well-crafted, well-rehearsed, well-honed presentation straight out of the 100K you collected a couple weeks ago at Pitch Me. So
you're aware of that.
Yeah. So for everybody else, Mark gave this talk wasn't for the governor, it was for Justine at Michigan Central, and walked off with the big check. So good on you. In terms of the breadth of information that you present, you dangle just enough hooks in the water that you don't give me any reason to tune out, but you also don't give me any reason to tune in. So they're all very shallow hooks. And I think you can pick, whether it's in your go-to-market or in your scalability or in a use case here or two, you can pick a human interest or a particular story that really resonates with you, Mark, one that you enjoy telling, because your enjoyment is going to come across to us. We're going to see you connecting with the content, and we're going to connect with you. Your authenticity is what gets you the follow-up meeting. Now, your polished delivery is what gets you the big check from Justine. So you're not doing anything wrong there. But when you're in front of an angel group, you're in a room, you're surrounded with folks who all have checkbooks out and they don't need a money manager to write one. You really want to make it more personal, more personable. So that's my feedback on your presentation. Sandra, do we go into Q&A here, or what do we do at this point? Do you want to take it around?
No, you can ask a question or two while we're
okay.
here.
I've got three, and I'm gonna let you, Mark, pick which two to answer. So I'll give you all three. First one is, I want customer stories, specifically Lime and Joko. Second is, why are we starting in Detroit, not Amsterdam? And third, how do you scale out of New Lab? So you pick two of those three questions and take the floor.
Sure, no worries. I'll start with the scaling out of New Lab, because that's probably the simplest question to answer. And so New Lab is where we've been building all of our vehicles. And because we're at this very early stage, we're building every single one of them by hand.
I'm watching. I have an office in New Lab.
Yeah. I mean, and New Lab has made it very easy for us because they purchased all the machinery. There's Bloom there. At this scale, when we're building like a dozen or a couple of dozen units, that's perfect for us. Once we get to our, let's call it manufacturing ready product, and we're working very diligently with the team at Centropolis actually to get to that stage, then we're going to need to move faster and at higher volumes. And at that stage, we'll probably outgrow the capabilities within New Lab. Fortunately, in the broader kind of Detroit, Michigan area, there are some really fantastic contract manufacturers like Disher, like Detroit Manufacturing Systems, all of whom who have the capabilities of building what we need better than we built them ourselves. And so we've been
Component
talking
level
to.
or OEM?
I'm sorry.
Are they going to build the whole unit, or are they going to build components and you assemble?
No, they'll build the whole thing. I mean,
Okay.
so our vehicle is incredibly simple. It is, and I'm saying this not as the product guy, but it has roughly the same complexity as a lawnmower. And so
Well, I'm
folks like,
familiar with bike manufacturing. You've got frame, you've got mechanics, and in your case, you've also got electrics. That could be 3 different manufacturers.
yeah, so again, that's a question that I'll defer to my product team on, but we've been talking to Detroit Manufacturing Systems and Disher for the last 6 to 9 months. They've been through the product development process with us in parallel, and they feel very confident. Our team feels very confident that they could manufacture it in addition to, there's a handful of other partners in the local area. So
Well, that's also why you're not in Brooklyn or Minneapolis, is because you've got all the options here.
indeed, when it came time to actually
All
manufacture,
right, let's move on
because
to one of the other questions. I want to give my fellow panelists a shot at this.
yeah, so customer stories. We've built our product basically hand in hand with all of our initial customers, and those were largely like the niche 3PLs like DutchX and Net Zero Logistics. We went to them before we did any kind of concepting and said, what do you currently have in your fleet? What is it that you don't like about them? And they came to us with, everyone
Good.
came
What
to
did
us with, of
Joko
course.
say?
So Joko loves our solution for both their internal purpose, and they want to make it available to their customers. So for their operations, they want to use it to go around and pick up their bikes for maintenance and all that sort of stuff.
So
But they're
Lime
also,
solution, but not as Joko putting one of those out for one of its accounts.
no, they're also very interested in that as well. So
Okay.
that's a little bit further down the line. That's something that we'll have to develop together because it's quite different to what they're currently offering. Right? It's a different price point. It's a different use case. But they approached us with that intent.
Very cool. All right, I yield my time. Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Excellent. Okay. Andy, we're going to go to you next. Unmute and provide some feedback to Mark.
Okay. I concur with everything David said. I think it was a very polished presentation. I also agree with the getting into more depth in sort of the customer stories because, I mean, you spent a fair bit of time talking about the pilot, but I think that's kind of like a follow-on conversation. I think showing that, because most people would look at this and say, okay, that's a very niche product. What's the application type thing? Because especially like in, where you get snow and this sort of thing, people are going like,
Yep.
But back to his question about why not Amsterdam, valid question, because mind you, Amsterdam, there's a couple of Dutch manufacturers that have like not totally dissimilar products. But even like, running out of the new lab in Brooklyn and doing New York City, may be an option. Because, you get where you have a lot of congestion in city centers, these things make a lot more sense. The one thing that as a VC I like to hear a lot of depth on is go-to-market strategy. And I didn't hear it specifically enunciated, but it sounds like you're going to be doing direct sales.
Correct.
That's a slow scale up. It can be done. I mean, obviously.
Yep.
And it looks like your unit cost looks like it's going from like 70 grand a pop down to like 15 over like about 4 years. Based on that revenue sort of like units and revenue.
Correct. Yeah.
So like explaining how that trend works and also how you're going to scale sales, because having a sales force, your own in-house sales force, is brutal. Been there, done that. So are you going to use distributors and who?
Yep.
The other thing to echo sort of another sort of cut on what David said, the customer stories is sort of like along the lines of a customer discovery thing, because it seems to me this is kind of a niche sort of product, like in sort of south of here where it doesn't snow so much, sure, year round type thing, But I think if you try to do this, even at most airports, like where you get torrential rains, right? The people that are running these things are going to want to have an enclosed cab for environmental, and that sort of stuff. So is that like, how broad is this sort of open trike sort of concept in terms of use cases? Okay. And one trivial kind of question, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm a pretty hardcore cyclist, so I got to ask it. Why do you have pedals on this thing?
It's a very simple question. So that it is classified as a bicycle.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Because that way it's a drive-by-wire. There's a cadence sensor.
Do they do anything, or are they just a prop?
No, we actually have a video of Governor Whitmer pedaling it around Newland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's so that it's a class 2 e-bike, right?
Correct, and so we can take advantage of all the things that an e-bike can do in parking.
That's kind of what I thought.
Excellent. Okay, awesome. And next we are going to Josh. Can you go ahead and unmute and share your thoughts with Mark?
Yeah. First of all, appreciate you taking the time. I enjoyed it. I think one of the things, because I think we've had a conversation or two before, and I think this goes to some of the feedback overall. First of all, I agree. I think in certain, like, there's strategic levels of depth that I think you could go into that would be helpful. Another thing that I think, because again, again, I think I just have this benefit, but like sharing more about the civilized cycle, civilized cargo like journey to get to this point, I think would help answer some of the why not Amsterdam, inform some of the buyer rationale, and I also think it's just really interesting too, because some of the questions that I'm left with, I think I know the answer for maybe like a previous conversation, but I think for first time, if you're showing up to someone for the first time, it's easy to kind of like nip it in the bud and kind of just answer the question up front. And so overall, I think, like I said, again, very polished, very clear. And then again, jumping into some of the feedback, if it's okay, the levels of depth specifically around the go-to-market strategy, because again, you also have like a pretty, like, it's a high-level slide, and then it's a massive jump up from like a $50 million beachhead to like $30 billion. And it's like, again, I know we're not solving today for the $30 billion, but like how that, like, is what I need to try to get to is like, is there line of sight in the trajectory that's going to lead up and line up for you to be on that path beyond just like what the financial projections say and like what manufacturing capabilities might be. And so I think that's an area where like greater clarity could be helpful. Another like high level like thing that I think was I'm just curious about, it's like, and maybe it was just like a function for this pitch or this this presentation, like but there's no ask. And usually when you're talking to investors or stakeholders, or even in this platform where like investment's not expected, I would use the opportunity to like have an ask. Because I think what I'm left with is kind of trying to then understand what you need, how I can be helpful, and frankly, like what's next for you. And all like really essential things that I think, I know David and Andrew have like great massive networks that, there's probably some element of support that could be provided if you give them the opportunity. And so that's another thing. And then the other thing, and this goes back into the depth a little bit, is kind of more clarity around the value proposition in the product and the unique value proposition in the product. I know you mentioned the patent, but I think like that, like being very specific on the unique value proposition will be will go a long way. And you can do that in like a couple sentences, right?
Mhm.
And maybe with a couple more words on the slide. And then the last thing, from this standpoint, this goes back to the journey, that I think, could be really helpful in informing, is like, I just think of like the complexity from like from again, using the privilege of some of our earlier conversations, and maybe why, Amsterdam might not make sense, is kind of like understanding the like regulatory challenges of like getting into the market. I know that like New York is, rapidly changing their regulatory landscape. And so just addressing that, like addressing what are going to be pain points or like concerns that like, hey, we've at least thought about this, and like it's informing our strategy, I think will be really helpful. And you can probably carry that forward, very early on in the presentation. So overall, like, great job, but I'll pause there, and hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Excellent feedback. That was terrific. And we still have 2 more great presentations to go. So next up, we are going to bring on Lana Last from AIMA, or do you prefer it to be AIMA? I'm not sure how you say
Emma.
it. Emma. Okay.
Yeah,
So great. Welcome. We can hear you. That's wonderful. So go ahead and pull up your slides.
sure. Give me a hot second. Okay. It's going to look big at first.
There we go.
Right.
In presentation. Okay, we are there, and I've got the timer ready, so you may begin whenever you are ready.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lana Last. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Emma. Our mission at Emma is to provide effective natural pain management solutions that are rooted in science and free from harmful side effects in women's health. So for 25 years, I've suffered debilitating period and pelvic pain. My co-founders have experienced the same journey, and it has been horrendous. There are only 3 treatment options when dealing with period and chronic pelvic pain, and they all have severe side effects. So first, the doctor will give you Advil or NSAIDs, but those can cause stomach ulcers, what I developed and my co-founders developed, as well as kidney failure and liver problems. And 30% of women don't even find Advil effective for their period or pelvic pain. The next thing the doctor will try to put you on is birth control, hormonal contraceptives. But as we all know, those have severe side effects. I developed TIA, which are tiny strokes, which pushed me to the third option, opioids, which of course can cause addiction and death. I'm not alone in this journey though. 109 million women every single month suffer from chronic pelvic pain, and 98% have chronic period pain. Pelvic pain is an umbrella term that describes endometriosis, adenomyosis, PCOS, painful sex, fibroids, and cysts. So this is a massive untapped market. It's so big that women go home from work and the US economy loses $7 billion every single year because of it. So at Emma, we decided to create a new category of pain relief, and that is our OV Relief line. Our first product is called OV Relief Vaginal and Rectal Suppository. It's that little guy in the middle there, smaller than a tampon, about the size, if you're a man, of your pinky up to here. You put that into the vagina and it slowly dissolves over time, allowing the active ingredients of CBD, CBG, and other cannabinoids to release into the vagina to manage flare-ups. We have published patents on our formulations, and we actually just launched a new product, oral capsules. In our oral capsules, we launched them this week. That's why I don't have a photo. Our oral capsules are really great for preventing inflammation that causes this type of pain, whereas our OV Relief Vaginal and Rectal Suppository manage the flare-ups during that time of the month. Our team is amazing. I'm obviously the co-founder and CEO. I have 2 wonderful co-founders who have 25 plus years of clinical experience. Dr. Mally Maybod specializes in drug discovery and delivery. Melanie Treborg is a cellular biologist who has started and exited her own biotech in neurology. And we have fantastic advisors who work for Slutty Vegan, Wild, Thinks, as well as Femtech Focus. So we're backed by an amazing crew. I don't know why that slide is always blank. Our business model is subscription on our website. So you can go there to purchase. We're e-commerce. We generate anywhere from 43 to 71% of a margin because our best seller is actually our 2-pack. So you can buy 2 boxes of 10 suppositories for $69. People tend to, because they're in so much pain in this group, will buy literally a suppository a day to manage their issues. So our best seller of our 10-pack isn't even enough. People usually buy 4 boxes in total. So our AOV is quite high. We do have a subscription. So typically what happens on our customer journey is one person will come in, they'll purchase the one time to try out the suppository because this crowd is very much overwhelmed with the amount of options, alternative options to manage their pain. They'll purchase the one time. If they really like it, they'll hop on subscription or they'll buy multiple boxes at once repeatedly every month. So seeing that trend, we're actually going to be adjusting our subscription model to accommodate them better. In terms of our go-to-market strategy, we actually are more of a B2B2C company. So we work with healthcare practitioners and affiliates. That's how we make our money. There are 10,000 pelvic floor therapists in the in the US, and that's who we target. Pelvic floor therapists absolutely love our products because they're so frustrated with Big Pharma and the lack of alternative solutions. So we typically have over 200 affiliates who recommend our products to their patients. Their patients go onto our website with a discount code so we can track them and purchase there. We did launch a D2C a few months ago, and we're growing that steadily. We have about a 34% conversion there with over 200 customers, and we're working with Megan Ward and Lauren Walsh's marketing company to help us expand. And recently, we've actually been asked by one of the leading experts, world-leading experts in endometriosis, Dr. Mike Armour, to import our products into Australia. So that is something that we're looking at since that is a blue ocean there. In terms of our traction, we're working with Henry Ford Health in 3 of their clinics. So at first we met with their chronic pelvic pain clinic to run a trial using their patients they have 3,000 patients. This is really great because this gets us doctor buy-in. Typically gynecologists and specialists are not keen on cannabis, but because we're scientifically backed, and I'll talk about that in a moment, they're really keen to allow us to use their patient pool and work with us. So we started in their chronic pelvic pain clinic, and then they recommended us to their sexual dysfunction clinic and now their endometriosis clinic. So we're going to be running trials with them, producing more product and more patents. In terms of sales, just through word of mouth and our affiliates, we've made over $20,000 with just our suppository alone. We have a 35% return rate, and our AOV is over $50. Of course, this fluctuates a bit each month. And now that we've released another product and higher bundles, we'll see this increase. Just for October alone, our sales were up by 267%. In terms of our biotech, we have that in the background, and that is our formulation and exit strategy into Big Pharma. So I've been pitching a CPG company, but in the back end, we're a biotech company, and I'll explain a bit more about that. And so I know that you guys must be wondering who else is in this space. So there are a few companies who make CBD and CBG vaginal suppositories. However, this is considered an FDA cosmetic, the equivalent of eye cream. And so because of this regulatory standard, no one has done any scientific research or verification for these products except for us. And this is what makes us stand out the most. So we did in vitro studies using vaginal epithelium cells, so petri dish in the petri dish, and we found that we maintain the vaginal pH, whereas all of our competitors that we tested pushed the vaginal pH to 7, which can cause yeast infections, BV, UTIs, and it completely messes up the vaginal microbiome, pushing actually higher levels of flare-ups and pain. So that was pretty shocking. We also did a drug release profile with ourselves and our competitors. And what we found here is we actually lasted 50 hours in the vaginal epithelium cells in the petri dish, which was really great. And we had this great initial burst. Interestingly, our competitors who claim to have other cannabinoids don't actually have them. Why? Because they're using hemp extract, which is the equivalent of taking an omega oil. We use isolates and distillates, so we know exactly how much is going into the vagina, which is perfect when we do our trials. We also, as part of our patent, have a secret active ingredient, and it has this really great burst and then a really long initial release profile. We've also done 2 observational trials with people who had normal period pain and people who had endometriosis, and we found that 80% of them had total relief, which was amazing. It took 7 to 9 hours for them to have total relief, which was perfect. In terms of our pipeline, I've been talking about the OV Relief and oral capsule pipeline. We're actually working with McGee Women's Health on reproductive cancer pain management over the counter, and then with Henry Ford Health on menopause. We do in the background down here have our biotech formulation that will help us exit to big pharma that we're raising money for. We have published patents around our composition of matter and many more to come. And so right now we're currently fundraising $2 million. This will manage all of our D2C as well as our work with Henry Ford Health and filing more patents as well as gaining more manufacturing. We got our first investment in 2023 from IndieBio, a biotech accelerator in New York that paid for all of our science and manufacturing. And now we're in Techstars Detroit, scaling up, which has been really great. Our goal in 2025 is to make $1 million ARR and look at retail ahead. So why EMMA? It's 100 million women who suffer from this pain and a $50 billion opportunity that people have not touched. And we are a great team of scientists and business professionals. So thank you.
Wonderful. Terrific presentation, Lana. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we are going to go now and get some feedback. And so this time we are going to begin with Andy. So please unmute yourself and share with Lana.
So Lana, first off, congratulations. This is like everybody has a family member that has an issue like this. I mean,
thank you.
I don't know anybody that isn't aware of this problem. And from, you know, it is also a problem that has like not a lot of great solutions. So, and Sandra will back me up on this. I used to do med device and therapeutics, and I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
And the reason I don't do that anymore is I hate regulatory.
Fair, totally. I hear you.
So, it seems that, I mean, I like the fact that you're doing this science-based. Okay, that's my first sort of complaint about a lot of the stuff that's sort of out there. And we work with a lot of the CPG brands, not on these sorts of things, but in other areas. So I kind of understand sort of where they come from. And there's always this sort of gray area between medically regulated stuff, formulation, like compounding pharmacy, and actually, you know, sort of OTC, well, not even OTC stuff that's totally unregulated.
Right.
So when do you cross over the boundary to getting, because like, I like the fact you've got a pipeline, you've got, you know, that's always good to see that you're not a one-trick pony. But when you cross the line into this needs to go through full regulatory?
Yeah, so we're not, that's a really great question. I'm just keeping my slides up because I'm a visual learner. So if that's okay with everyone, I'm just going to flip through to explain it. So really, let me just get at the speak. Okay, so all of these 2 product lines and even our menopause is going to be over the counter, and we're not taking that to FDA. We went to the FDA when we first started this company with our, what we call our OVRX line. And they told us, no, go launch a consumer line first, collect as much real world data as possible and come back to us. And we can actually, because of our RX, skip animal trials and go straight into humans. And while that's exactly what we're doing, but it would be a different indication. It would be for the reproductive cancer pain management, because this formulation is really heavy in managing that type of pain. There are already drugs coming out for endometriosis, for fibroids, PCOS. We're not trying to track that space. We're trying to do that OTC, not through the FDA. So we're already working on trying to get the early preliminary data for this line to file the patents to then prep. So that's what we've been doing. This whole company is like prepping for this massive line. Did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. The other question, and I'm glad that you actually had a go-to-market slide on there, but I was a little bit unclear as to where you go sort of from here, because like it wasn't like how much are you going to be doing through channels? How much are you doing DTC?
Yeah.
Direct to consumer, that sort of thing.
Yeah, when you say like how much are you doing, do you mean in terms of sales, or do you mean like where is our focus?
Yeah, exactly. Where's your focus? Like how much you started out saying, okay, we've been working with the clinics, which is a great way to get buy-in because it's a professional source. But how I didn't get a clear sort of answer about, like when you went through, I didn't sort of clearly hear the answer, and you don't have to answer it today. I just didn't hear, I didn't hear a very clear sort of, this is how we plan to go to market through our channels. This is how we plan to do a direct to consumer. This is how we plan to do international. Like, are you partnering with Boots or somebody like that in Australia? That sort of thing.
So for our affiliates, my co-founder Melanie, because she's a cellular biologist and speaks the science and the language of the healthcare practitioners, we actually have a list of 10,000 healthcare practitioners across the US. The only state we can't sell to is Utah because suppositories are illegal there. So we actually send out a drip.
Of course they are.
Go figure. So we actually send out a drip campaign every single day to these healthcare practitioners and track it, because we show the results to Techstars to see, and our mentors to be like, hey, are we sending the right emails? Are we sending the right scientific information? Can we book meetings with them? And so far we have 200 affiliates just by doing this drip funnel. And it's very scalable because we have a great CRM, and it helps us like A/B test messaging to certain providers, because people are a little bit sketchy about cannabis, not so much pelvic floor physios. So we do partnerships with like major PTs, like we did with one in New York who introduced us to another, and then it kind of spins. So for our affiliates, that's what we do. For D2C, it's obviously, of course, social media. And that's where like Megan and Lauren have been helping us, because it's social media. D2C is really, really freaking hard. And especially when we can't put out an advertisement because we're cannabis, especially because women's health gets shadow banned on Instagram and TikTok all of the time. Like I've used dyspareunia, which means painful sex. And I got shadow banned from TikTok from just saying that. But larger companies can post major things, right? So
you don't have to go through the detail today. I'm just saying that, like, when I heard this, I didn't get a really clear story.
Perfect. I will add that.
Of how your channels are working and how you're balancing those channels. And also, are you going through like the CVSs or the Boots and this sort of thing? By the way, last thing I'll say is, congrats on IndieBio. Like the guys, we work with the guys out of New York, great team.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Yeah, it was
we
great.
really like them.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. That was terrific. A lot of great feedback for there. We are going to jump right over to Josh. Unmute and share your thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it, and appreciate the work that you and the team are doing, especially because it is so important, such an important problem. I'll just jump into some high-level feedback, and then maybe have a couple of questions.
Perfect.
But again, very smooth presentation, was easy to follow, even for folks that are less experienced in biotech and in this space. I think so. Appreciate that. One suggestion that I would make is clearing any sort of regulatory hurdles that like are either not relevant or you have a plan for earlier in the presentation, both related to the the cannabinoids, essentially like the CBD stuff, as well as the trajectory and the plan for the business. Because like doing that earlier, it was like it was one of those things where like I assumed you were going to get to it, but I just kept thinking, okay, well, what is which distracted, sometimes my ability to focus on the given slide. And so that, I think, like clearing that up front will kind of set investors at ease in a little bit of a different way, and help you navigate and make sure that they focus on the critical things, which are, how you're solving the problem and the quality of the team and things like that. Does that make sense?
Totally. Love that advice. Thank you.
Yep. The other thing, again, as someone who's like not as experienced in this space specifically, both from like the lived experience, but also from the standpoint of the industry, try to clear or any sort of like acronyms from the vernacular of the presentation, because you might, one thing, and I'll just say, I'll speak for myself sometimes, especially when I'm less experienced in a sector, or like I might have a question, but I also might be like too embarrassed to ask it. Right. And so like, because again, we think about this like, right or wrong, again, we don't need to get into that today, but like the power dynamic, or like the experiential like dynamic of like the investor, like helping understand and kind of like remove ambiguity is going to create and foster in a more open environment where you can get to the really important things in the presentation. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, totally.
It's like, sometimes, humans, sometimes we're like insecure and we don't want to ask questions, but that will help us understand. And when we understand, we know how to help and make more effective decisions. The other thing, and this is a small one, and again, this is nothing to get like stuck on too much, but like sometimes when we do presentations, like formatting and stuff will change from how we had it in Canva or wherever. Just do it like, not everybody always cares, but like just in case you get that investor that does care, make sure you've done a clear run through of like format, that, and you're happy with the formatting. The other, so I want to save time for David. I don't know how much I've been rambling, but I think two general questions that, and then I'll just kind of like leave it there, that I think are like quick answers that you could update. One is like around the return rate and around the performance slide, contextualizing like the time you've been in market, you've been selling that will be helpful, so people can understand how to properly evaluate performance to date, right? And like the message you're trying to send. And then the other thing is a little bit more on the fundraise slide. I appreciate that you had the ask, but like, why is 2 million the right number? Informing us of that helps us break down and understand that this is frankly the right amount of resources to help you hit your milestones that are going to secure your next investment.
Okay, perfect. I think that makes total sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Josh, that was great feedback. Thank you so much. And David, you have great feedback as well. I'm sure we are a little bit over time, so let's try to keep it a little bit brief, but it's such great conversation.
Because Lana's Techstar mentor introduced her to me earlier this month, and I've heard a lot of this already, so I'm going to zero in. I like going last because I get to riff on Andy and Josh. You're presenting to some white guys, and you're doing everything right. You're not tripping over you're not falling into girl-splaining to us at all. You're just laying it out there. So those aspects from our previous conversation, I didn't know that about you because I didn't let you pitch. We were just chatting. Now I've seen you on the stump. Love your product line slide. You know,
Thank you.
and Andy likes science. Josh likes regs. For me, that slide makes me take your venture seriously. And you, like so many of the innovators that we meet, love your product. And I'll go even further. You love your customer, which are
Yeah.
both super important. But to the extent that you're turning that love into a venture, Emma, that's what we're investing in. And that's what we expect return from, not from the customer and not from the
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
So make sure that that slide, which says venture, maybe just spend a little more time working down the slide to say why you're doing discovery in this area and how you're going to go to market in this area. All right. So riffing again on Andy, I'm going to respectfully disagree with my buddy from Dexter. You don't need science. Anecdotal is powerful.
Yeah.
Anecdotal is how viral works, not science. I think you can just cut off D2C at the knees anytime. Those are push and string, hard sales, low margin, a high cost of customer acquisition, high churn. Instead, work through those affiliates, because the supplement, this answers Josh's concern about regs, introduce it early as a supplement. Always call it a supplement or a cosmetic, and then we won't be confused that you put the reg slide as late as you did. I don't want to see regs up front. What I want to see up front is that you're going to own this space where everybody else is marketing anecdotally, and you're going to own it with a trademark.
Right.
You're going to be Kleenex. You're going to be Cadillac. You're going to be the go-to brand for this.
Okay. Yeah.
Here are the two channels that mirror the pelvic floor physios that make you the brand.
Okay.
The first one is alternative health providers, which include osteopaths and homeopaths and acupuncturists. They have a very rigorous supplement market.
Yes.
The one that I see has got a whole room full of supplements.
Yeah.
And is referring all the time to a Chinese herb or to a particular mushroom that I've never heard of. So that's the first one. The second one is, and I'm going to give you the floor now, I want to hear the Dr. Mike Farmer story. And I want to preface this with saying that Pointe Angels made an investment in women's health earlier this year in Ivana Health, which is for abnormal uterine bleeding, and I believe this guy was on their slide too. So I'd heard the name before, and I'm like, is that the same guy? I don't have their deck up because I'm paying attention to you.
Farmer.
Yeah. So tell us, Lana, the whole beginning to end.
Okay.
You got an email, then what happened?
From like.
But we don't have time to address that right now. We've got to wrap it up because we are over time. But I see what he's saying. He's saying, say
yeah.
it.
We want to see you first quarter. Be following up with Michaela so that you're in.
Yes, I will, definitely. I will.
All right.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Don't
Oh my
take so
gosh.
much time, Andy. I got more to say.
That's so great. So this is a great session today, and we aren't done yet. We have one more presentation that is spectacular. So next on our list is Avery Planadosi. Am I saying that right?
Piantadosi. It's actually Petrovsky now because I just got married. So.
Oh, hey, congratulations. Good for you.
Changed all of my everything.
Wonderful. Avery is here with LifeKnight Inc. And so one more presentation. Hang in there with us, folks. One more wonderful one to go. So Avery, pull up your slides. We'll reset the timer.
So I'm going to share. Oops. It's not letting me share for some reason.
Didn't we practice this, didn't we?
We did, and it worked.
I know we did.
Yeah, even when let's see, I'm
People.
trying to share the window, the tab, or the entire screen, and it's grayed out.
Let me try this. Okay, I tried to change your status. See if did that change anything?
Now I can't even click the share button. It says
Oh,
only meet
jeez.
organizers and presenters can share.
That didn't help. Okay, let me see if I can get that back again. That didn't help. Okay. Oh, how about this? Let's try this. Try that now.
Screen, window, or tab. I think it's gonna work. It worked. Yay.
Hang on. Yes, there it is. Perfect. So go ahead and get in presentation mode.
Everybody sees?
Outstanding. Yep, there you go. Perfect. I've got the
All right.
timer set. You can begin whenever you're ready.
Okay. So my name is Avery Petrovsky, formerly Avery Piantadosi. I'm the CEO and founder of LifeKnight, where we are an AI-powered emergency automation. We make technology that keeps people safe. So I wasn't always the founder of a technology company. In fact, I was a serial entrepreneur in real estate in a past life, being a broker in Michigan and in Florida. And my last company was a brokerage that I started on the Space Coast of Florida. It was a commercial firm, and I was showing a property to somebody I'd never met before and was almost assaulted on that showing. Being a techie my whole life, I came home very shaken up. Luckily, nothing physically happened to me. But I thought, you know what? Nobody knows where I am, who I'm with, and when I was supposed to be home. If I called 911, would I be too scared to tell them what was going on? Would I be able to articulate where I was? So I looked on the market to see if there was any personal safety applications I could use. And I found that there was really nothing. I was kind of shocked. And also found that there were some other issues with our public safety system in the process. So our billion-dollar safety industry relies on a 35-year-old technology for emergency calls. This causes delays in instances when every second counts. And these outdated systems are a risk for public safety, but they're costing the companies that make money in this industry billions of dollars. So 50% of 911 callers can't locate cell phone caller, 911 centers can't locate cell phone callers, which is a huge issue. Human error causes delays, leading to loss of $1 million a year and loss of lives. According to the Wall Street Journal, 10,000 lives could be saved each year by reducing 911 response times by just 1 minute. So companies like Life Alert and ADT, when they get an emergency call and it goes through their call center, it is deprioritized by 911 operators. It is not treated like a critical call. So the old model is somebody like Mark in this example, he bought an ADT alarm system. He thought it would protect him and his family. And as an alarm, his home alarm went off, but 45 minutes later, the police are no longer there. This is because the call is routed through an expensive call center. The person has to figure out what's wrong and what's going on. Mark has to be able to articulate that information. And this is what causes this lag time and costs money and lives. So our way, Mark's emergency happens. Our platform handles emergencies and sets priorities before human beings are ever even involved. And the emergency is routed and escalated as a high priority 911 call. Our solution helps companies like ADT or Apple, OnStar, to connect to this legacy 911 system. And we do have some annual cost savings that we did. A smaller alarm company, we can save up to about 250,000, ADT 50 million. A company like Apple, we could save them about $500 million a year. So our proof of concept is the lowest safety app. I finally did get my safety app that I wanted. I just had to create it myself. on it. And it's pretty simple. You choose an alert, set an appointment, Lois checks up on you. If you don't respond, we assume you're in trouble. And then we share your location with your contact person or first responders or any other network that is applicable. This works proactively. It works if the cell towers are down. It works if the phone is destroyed. We wanted something that worked proactively, especially in issues of potentially domestic violence where people couldn't even articulate, even if they could get to the phone and call 911, they can't articulate what's going on. So this serves as our flagship product, and it also just shows what our API can do, but there's a lot more that our platform is capable of. So our business model is we're working with health and safety technology companies, as well as emergency response centers and alarm monitoring companies. Our revenue streams are the licensing of our platform, our customization of that platform for additional features, and the licensing and white labeling of the app. So we have quite a bit of competition. The space is, I wouldn't call it crowded, but there's definitely a defined need. There's a lot of money going into solutions that seem to be just following the call center model. They're not proactive. They either don't have a safety app or it's flawed. We have patented tech that's a unique proven technology. We directly connect to 911. There's no middleman needed. We're lean and compatible. We work with both old and modern systems. We ensure that critical calls get through to who they need to get through to. We have flexible connections, meaning we can link to any network or emergency platform. So even a closed network, such as something on a cruise ship or at a university. We run the Lois app and additional safety apps, and we are SOC 2 compliant. So we did a lot of R&D and worked with first responders to create what we have. We got our first patent in January 2023. We created a pilot program with social workers in 2023 and launched the safety app. We just completed MSU's Conquer Customer Discovery Program. We were accepted into NVIDIA's Inception program this fall, and we have a partnership with IBM Watson, where we are actually working on a fall detection feature for assisted living facilities. We have an amazing team. I've listed here the founding team. We also have a wonderful board of advisors who have been on board pretty much the whole time. Our go-to-market would be our early adoption, low-hanging fruit. We have a LOI with NASA and Kennedy Space Center for 16,000 workers to use the app to prevent them from going into hazardous areas. We have the IBM Watson partnership, which is leading to the assisted living contract. And then we're going to get into upselling and expanding. We have connections with Apple and NVIDIA pretty high up there, people who have expressed interest in integrating this. And then year 3, we'd like to start attracting acquisition targets. Here's some recent acquisitions and exits in the space. And this is kind of how we got to those numbers. Our assumptions: we are a SaaS platform, 200 per user per year with a 4% churn. User acquisition costs $10, even though we are B2B. So we're raising currently $700,000 in a pre-seed round. 50% of this is going towards customer onboarding and acquisition. We're already built out. We don't need the money for the technology. We need to hire key team members, such as a marketing person, to help us with the customer onboarding. We'll spend a little bit on R&D and then a little bit of on ongoing refinement and testing. This will give us about an 18-month runway for aggressive growth into the market. So we'd like for you to join us. Our mission is clear. We want to harness AI and cutting-edge technology to transform the safety industry, protect lives, and save millions of dollars for our customers in the process. Are you ready to be a part of our game-changing journey? And here's the contact information if anybody is interested. Thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Avery. That was terrific. We are going to start off this round of feedback with Josh. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Josh, and tell us what you think.
Yeah, thanks, Avery. And again, good to see you. Thanks for I'm gonna try to balance, my privilege of some existing information with, the pitch or the presentation. So overall, I think one of like I think it's helpful in understanding kind of, I think one of the things that I'm left a little confused by is like, are we talking specifically about the API opportunity or the platform, and what that means within the broader context of essentially the opportunity you're selling? Kind of going back to David's point in the previous presentation, where it's like, what are we buying here from an investor perspective? Because I think some of those things might change. And again, that is, I think, some clarifying that could be done earlier in the presentation that would be helpful. Another thing that I think is an opportunity, or two areas where I think you could kind of sit a little bit longer that could be helpful, is on the business model page. Again, kind of getting to the point that I was just making, as well as the traction page, and kind of giving a little bit more color. You got some big names on there. Give a little bit more color into what that means for you, what that means for the business, and what that means for your prospective investors. Because again, you did the right thing and it like piques the interest. I think with like one or two sentences, that could be, more helpful. But overall, again, one, appreciate the work that you're doing. Obviously a critical problem to be solved. Two, I love the initiative in like, I had this terrible experience. I want to make sure no one else does. And you just go do it yourself. You built it yourself. And three, I think the persistence and the evolution of the business, going back to maybe like feedback with Mark earlier, that journey, appreciate hearing that and understanding that as a part of the pitch, and kind of and you getting to this point. So I'll pause there from a feedback perspective. I think maybe I can be long-winded. Two questions that you don't necessarily need to answer right now, but in the spirit of making sure other folks ask, are like, kind of, again, one, understanding very clearly like what these partnerships mean with like IBM. Is there monetary value associated with that? What do you get out of the Inception program besides maybe like access to credits? Like, are there specific relationships? Like, do you have a strategy for how you're going to penetrate the organization that is unique to you? Three, the opportunity that you have with Kennedy Space Center, that's a different application and use of the technology than what we were previously introduced to. So would love to kind of see how that like weaves in. And then the next bucket around kind of like beyond the traction is like, are there any like privacy or security constraints that you need to manage or be aware of? We're a regulatory light country in this sense, but there might be things coming down the line that it'd be helpful to at least know you're aware of and you're kind of like planning around. So again, appreciate the time, and congratulations on all of the work that you've done and the success you've had so far.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Josh. That was wonderful feedback. And next, we're going to go to David.
Hi again, Avery.
Hello.
We met 5 years ago at A2 New
I
Tech
know.
when you were presenting
know.
Lois.
Yes.
And now
we
it's
were just-
LifeKnight. I kind of liked it
Yeah.
when it was Lois. I felt like Lois was my personal surveillance device.
It still is.
Well, but you've changed your positioning, see? And that 5 years of a venture will do that to you. I think at the time you were scouring the room for programmers. You hadn't built it yet. And now look at you. So Mazel Tov on the wedding, Mazel Tov on LifeKnight, and on the presentation you just gave, which resonating from Josh's comments, you're saying all the right stuff, but I wanna find out what's important to you as opposed to what's important to the investor, and maybe bring those into closer alignment. A couple of things that you emphasize the deprioritization of 911 calls. You actually say that on 3 slides, and I get the outrage, but outrage does not make me reach for my wallet. So say it once, say it in the right place, which is probably not as early in your talk as you do, but when you say it, connect it to that personal story. So your personal story, your mother of invention, your animating principle here, nobody else should have to go through this. That was what I really got 5 years ago, the notion that a Century 21 or a Collier's commercial realtor would be shown a property and, excuse me, I have to turn off my surveillance device so that you don't get arrested. You know, that active thing that nobody else is doing, but once they figure it out, you need to have been there already. You need to have locked up those white label opportunities. That's the second piece, is white label, white label, white label. Your connections in the Space Coast and in commercial real estate mean that you can speak that language, get through that door, and do a couple of deals and work your way up from local to region to national before anybody else figured out that you lapped them. In general, go to market slide is the most overlooked that we've seen this morning in all 3 presentations. You breezed through a couple of slides to get to your go to market slide. You actually spent like 10, 15 seconds. I hadn't even figured out what you were talking about, and you'd already flipped to the next slide. And then you got to the go to market slide, and I'm like, yes, her priorities are my priorities. And then the go to market slide actually doesn't talk about go to market. What you were saying on that slide was more about partners and more about, you know, how a single relationship scales, not how you, which is what a SaaS company needs to do, acquire, onboard, fulfill, manage, support, and retain. I'll repeat those more slowly when we do a follow-up. You're a SaaS company, say it early. You're not an AI company, don't say it at all. Don't be that, oh yeah, we're going to drop in the AI buzzword. It wasn't there 5 years ago. You don't need it today to do what you do. And you lose points for not being a pure play. Just say what you are and what you do. Now, questions for you. You did the Concord Discovery Accelerator. Tell me, please, because I love that program. What is a hypothesis that you went into this with that died? Something that didn't validate in the market? And what's something that you learned that you didn't expect?
Wow. So it is a great program. The hypothesis that died was that social work agencies were going to pay for the Lois app.
Wow.
Or any company like that. So what we learned is that there's very few people in the world willing to pay for workplace, employee, or customer safety.
Well, that's
and I
the
know
problem with
exactly who
safety
they are.
apps in general, Avery.
Yep.
Nobody pays for safety because they don't pay the price.
Yep. There are actually, there's a few groups that do. So I was able to learn who pays for it and why that hypothesis was incorrect. The thing that I learned the most was kind of just touching on what you were saying. And this is sort of this is just, it is what it is. It's investors really don't want to hear about saving lives as much as they want to hear about when am I going to get my 10x and how am I going to get my 10x? So I probably didn't build it in as much as I could have in my deck, but I have played down a lot of the life-saving. I mean, it's great to state it, and as human beings, we should all be concerned about it. But from an investment standpoint, this is a pitch deck to go get money to try to grow the business. They want to hear more, and that goes back to your your comment about spending a lot more time on the go-to-market slide and how we're actually going to get investors their money back.
First slide. We're a SaaS company in safety. At the end, acquire, onboard, fulfill, maintain, support, retain. And then we understand our 10X.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I yield my time.
Okay. Thank you. So next up, last but not least, bringing it home, Andy.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. I've only got like about a couple, 3 things here. Just starting out, I'll echo David's use of the gratuitous use of AI. Please don't. The other thing is, and this is just kind of a minor technical thing, when you that one slide you were talking about acquisition targets and that sort of thing, the font that you used, the red, was really hard to see on my screen. I couldn't even, because the blooming on it just format feedback. So I'm gonna take a little bit different tangent than what the others said. And on your last slide where you're going for your raise, good that you're looking at 18 months. Okay, that's always what you want to look at. I would probably say 700,000 is kind of too much of an exact number and probably a bit low. My experience is everything takes longer and costs more. Nobody ever hits their revenue numbers. They always hit their cost numbers. So you might want to round that up to like $1 million. That just visually it kind of looks better. And if somebody offers you more, like you close $1 million and somebody says, can I put in another 200,000? There's an old saying in venture capital, eat when dinner is served. So, say yes. As long as you're not doing an evaluation, it's like really stupidly low. Okay. And if you're getting over subscription, then your valuation probably is too low. And other than that, I just sort of my main sort of thing about the overall presentation is, and it goes a little bit into what Josh and David were saying, is focus. Okay, because I'm not exactly sure what business you're in. This early part, like where you're talking about security and personal security, in these sort of situations where you're all alone and everything else, get that, been in situations like that. And that's a clear story. What's that got to do with fall detection in senior citizens centers, right? Mm-hmm. It just seems to me, and this is one thing that, startups have to be very careful of, is focus and not looking like they're chasing squirrels. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to necessarily look at fall detection. A lot of people are doing that, though. That's an even more crowded area, I would argue, than the personal security sort of side of things. Okay. So, and I understand you're very early stage and you're still sussing out your market and that sort of thing. So I get it. Okay. But be careful how that is messaged, because when you start saying, yeah, we're going to do this, and then as Josh mentioned, you've got this other thing with the Kennedy Space Center that's different. And, there's like industrial applications here in like chem plants where everybody has to know where everybody is, right? All the time. Right. So there are safety applications that people care about, but you have to have kind of a consistent linear story through this whole thing. There may be sort of side things that you can go after. Yeah. Like one that immediately comes to mind for me because of personal experience, expats, right? If you've got expats living in Brazil or Colombia or Mexico or wherever, Ford, GM, Whirlpool, Chrysler, everybody has expats all over the world. Tracking them is usually a big thing. They spend a lot of money for things like ransom insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kroll Brothers is a big company in that market.
Yeah. I just went to a safety conference in Silicon Valley with like the head of global security of Google and eBay and Starbucks. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. And many of those companies contract out to companies like Kroll Brothers and this sort of thing. There's a bunch of them out there that don't really advertise very well for obvious reasons.
I love the feedback I do have a couple questions if I can ask.
Sure.
Because this has come up. Okay, so I think you're absolutely right in that the story is not cohesive enough, because the Kennedy Space Center and those are intended to be use cases for our platform. It is AI enabled. In fact, that's what we're building with IBM, is an AI agent, and we've already built it. So I'm not using it to get attention. I'm obviously not articulating well enough that this is an important advantage to what we've already built. When we started, we were not.
It actually works against you, Avery, because nobody trusts AI. We think it hallucinates and it doesn't do what we want it to do. I love that you're working with IBM. When you've beaten the shit out of it and it's really rough and ready, begin talking about it. Don't begin now when it's only going to raise hackles.
And the other thing is, it's so ubiquitous now, like everybody's doing it. It's like saying we use a computer, right? It doesn't add a lot of value.
It's interesting because in Silicon Valley, they have the absolute opposite. They're like, any company that's not trying to use it, we don't even want to really even talk to you. So it's funny what regions, but I'm trying to get investment from Michigan. So I know Michigan investors tend to be a little bit more conservative.
Not about conservative, it's about real.
Into the story.
West Coast is like in the clouds.
Yeah, and I'll echo what David said. The reason I've just seen so many people use it inappropriately. It was like blockchain was the last sort of big thing. I saw one the other day. It was AI-enabled blockchain crypto something.
Yeah,
Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point of not focusing on it, and weaving it in maybe when we have a more solid use case. But definitely, I get your points about the story not being cohesive. I agree with you on that. I don't think we're there yet.
Well, you're saying so many things, Avery. Just pick the ones we want to hear.
Yeah.
He's actually not wrong.
I'm going to have to jump in. We are at time, and I want to respect everybody's time. It is 10:30. Nope, 10:31. We're a minute over. But thank you, everyone, for being here today. I want to just do my quick little wrap up. I want to thank all of our presenters today for sharing their innovative companies with us. Such amazing work you all are doing. Thank you so much for bringing your innovations to the world and letting us see them early. Great job. And thank you, of course, to our investor panel for offering such insightful feedback. You guys have been there, done that, seen that, and to share your insights is so valuable. Thank you so much. And lastly, thanks to all the people who joined us. We had a few of you out there and you stuck with us the whole time. So glad you were here. Hope you learned something and I hope you join us again. We'll be meeting again on January 28th in the new year for our next KVT meeting. As always, it will feature 3 new companies and 3 new investor panelists. You can register for it and other upcoming events at our website. I have dropped that link into the chat. And again, thank you all for your participation and your attendance. Have a wonderful day. And I do hope to see you the next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
There we go.